So the main theme of this virtual series will be under the theme called From Crisis to the Next Normal. Each week's topic will be discussed by our amazing ASEAN youth leaders from every ASEAN countries and from various fields. And at the end of each episode, we will share the summary of what we have discussed here on our forum and post it on our official website at worldwideweb.c-asean.org, or as you can see on the screen here. And for this particular episode today, our speakers will discuss under the theme, under the topic called Remaking the Future. So, and now with no further ado, here is our three ASEAN speakers of the day. So, each of our speakers will introduce themselves one by one. So, let's start with Mr. Pavi. Please kindly introduce yourself to our audience, please.
My name is Pavi Nontamukonthorn. A recent law graduate in Business Law International program at Thammasat University, and also a former president now, an advisor of Thammasat University Model United Nations.
Yes, thank you. So next, please, Mr. An, please kindly introduce yourself.
Sawadee-krap. My name is Virai. So right now I am looking for an international NGO in Hanoi, Vietnam. So I'm working for environmental education. This means I'm running some projects to raise the public awareness of young people in Vietnam and ASEAN. So I'm so happy and so glad for being here today.
Yes, we are glad as well. So next, Mr. Casean, please kindly introduce yourself, please.
Hi everyone, Sawadee-krap. My name is Casean. I am a journalist based in Myanmar and working on the mainly focusing on Myanmar and also in the ASEAN region as well. So I've been working as a journalist for like 7 years and mainly reporting on the human rights and the current affairs.
Thank you very much for your kind introduction. So for our audience, if you have any question, please kindly send your question by typing in the comment box of our Facebook Live, and our speaker will answer those questions during the Q&A session later. So now, because of our theme is about remaking the future, but before we move forward to the future, we have to focus on today first, right? So right now we all are affected by COVID-19. So in terms of education, Mr. Pavi, what do you think is the current problem that education is currently affected by COVID-19? Please kindly explain from your experience.
Sure thing. So to begin with, from at this moment, firstly, ever since the lockdown, education becomes solely based on online accessibility. The requirement of accessing education or online classrooms requiring you to have an electronic devices like computers, laptop, tablet, or smartphone, and internet as well, with your own expenses to spend on these prerequisites in order to access it. However, due to the gaps of the income gap between the low and high income, the low income housing tend to unable to access this kind of online education. And in addition, the government, even though they seem to take that as a concern for such an issue, especially this moment, but they just only they just words that's all. They don't take any actions at all. They don't give any subsidies for very low income housing for children to access to online education. And the second issue for education at this moment is the lack of in-person interaction between students and teachers. This problem seems to highly affected on nurseries and primary schools, because students at a young age, like they require like, in-person interaction because it's the nature of humanity to understand like how to learn something from um, an older person to understand this is the knowledge that you're gonna gain it and this is how the result achieves. But for learning online, this lacks of in-person interaction, but in very close in person. But
Mm-hmm.
this seem to that problem seem to mildly shown on like high schools and university because like this type of students like they have like certain heights development of the brains already, so they know how to start to learn subjects and knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And the more problems the other than like during the situation of the COVID-19 is the never stop ending problems from what I experienced and from what I have heard from my friends and relatives. Like firstly, redundant and worthless contents of study and learning.
Mm-hmm.
The content from what I experienced in like in schools in Thailand is like the the contents are theoretical, not practical, not useful in daily life and work application at all. For example, from what I have heard, is like how to weld or how to use saber or which are gabi kabong subject,
Uh,
which is like how would you gonna carry that weapon around and gonna do self defense? That's kind of like cumbersome and awkward.
yeah.
And the second problem from what you can maybe like most people have experienced like as like students is forcing you to learn this like subject. So from my own experience, like I dislike mathematics and calculus, but I was forced to learn this subject. It's like against of my will to learn what I dislike the most. Like I prefer like to study like social science, like for as like speaking on behalf of like for these kind of students, like school like they seem to don't provide any like electives for this particular student who's interested in that subject.
Mm-hmm.
The third another problem regarding school is overloaded homework and school hours. From this combination, it results to not just on not just only like I little development of the knowledge from learning, but it gains like weariness and tiredness of the function of the brain. Even
Mm-hmm.
though you absorb lots of knowledge from learning in the school, but like eventually after you have learned it, it tends to go away. It's like a function in a short term memory rather than like long term memory that can keep you until you die.
Yeah.
So it should take the process of time for you to absorb and how to apply this kind of knowledge. And the another problem is like the discipline from teachers, like they get like student thinking process, like we tend to behave and to obey and hardworking like a drone or a robot, in which I feel sorry for the Gen X and Gen Y people. Um, we need to be like, oh, you need to follow this instruction. We have to get that exact answer, like the teachers say. You can't go alternatives or you can't go like against like that kind of answer.
Mm-hmm.
This problem can result like a poor application interaction in learning new knowledge and development of your kind of the brain, and also not very useful in real life application. The last problem that I can see like from social medias and news is like the decline in quality
Mm-hmm.
in favor of incomes from tuition fees. So I'm gonna speak overall, but not try to defame the academic institutions. Like academic education is like another type of business field in which like schools like are trying to gain money from accepting students to the in exchange of for price. However, like when you spend a this kind of service, like you're expected to gain as equivalent to what you have paid.
Mhm.
Like but in Thailand, from what we can see, it doesn't encourage students to develop their thoughts and critical thinking in order to be competitive against like national level and international level.
So you mean that especially during COVID-19, all these negative factors even make things worse in education, right?
Yes, that's
Mhm.
kind of in both way as well.
Okay,
So
so let me move on to environment subject because we have a limited time. So, Mr. An, in terms of environment, how does COVID-19 affect that environment? Is this in more positive way or more in a negative way?
Plays a role of a person who working for environment in a community in Vietnam. So I have to say that we cannot compare the positive effect and the negative effect. But let me can share about my knowledge as well as my perspective in terms of the positive way first. Okay, so everything good news should come first. So we have to say that environment is the only one. It is really one of the very few aspects in the social life that gets the very positive effect from COVID-19. It's really different compared to business or maybe mental health or anything. Because we have to say that I will lead down some perspective. First one, in Vietnam is a big city. For example, Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City. It is maybe similar to Bangkok, right? So because when the city on the lockdown, everyone will stay at home. So the private vehicle will not travel around the city. That's why the harmful emission gonna be reduced significantly. So it's very good news.
Mhm.
And one more that because the COVID-19 impact really negatively on the travel and airline industry. That's why right now we have to say that the green gases as well as some harmful emission gonna be to reduce. So it is lead to some very nice consequences about climate change and some really some bad disaster gonna be reduced during the COVID-19 pandemic. It is just some summary for me about the positive thing. But one I think it is the biggest problem right now caused by COVID-19 that is very negative for I think for every regions and every corner in the world because everyone stay at home on the lockdown, so they can't go out to buy food, to eat out. That's why. But right now with the development of technology, we have Grab, we have some delivery food application on online ordering. So I have to think that maybe for us used to you that kind of ask at least once in your life, and me too. So but we can think that when one person use food delivery, it's really okay because it's one person. But when the whole country do it in a long time, for example, Vietnam so lucky. Vietnam we just on the lockdown 1 month, but I know a lot of countries, a lot of nations still on the lockdown for maybe 3 or 4 months. That's why it's gonna to make the amount of plastic. For example, the number of plastic bags or plastic bottles. So a lot of product in terms of plastic gonna to increasing significantly and sharply. But we cannot because it is consequences. So it must happen because of COVID-19. So we cannot change anything. Uh, but I think right now every people aware of the harm of plastics. So that's why every companies they offer some campaigns. For example, we have the option in some application for reduce the plastic. So it is quite good news. Okay, so in sum, I have to say that COVID-19 brought us a lot of new things and strange things that we haven't ever met in our life. But it's give me a lot of chances to do some innovation. Yeah, so we have to find a way to cope with that problem. But last but not least, one more thing because during a long time on the lockdown, so people will think about okay, health it is the most important. So environment is not very important because we cannot how long we can live. So how we need to so why we have to need to protect environment. So it is one of challenge for every authorities to give them and to educate local citizens to have the right, it's very right and true mindset about that problem. Yeah. So it is my some idea and from something I can share from my perspective.
Thank you very much for your thought. And now we move on to Mr. Cape, who is specialized in human rights and journalism. What is your view about how COVID-19 affected human rights effort in many countries, or especially in Myanmar, or maybe how does it affect the society as a whole? Please. You have to unmute first.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, this COVID-19 is affecting the human rights situations, and also of course the journalism, industries in Myanmar as well. Of course, let me start from the journalism industry. Well, of course, when this COVID-19 started hitting to the region, the ASEAN, many of the journalists and the media house, they're not allowed to go out for the shooting, for collecting the news information. Of course, they rather be staying at home, unless they have very important news coverage. And when we are all working from home, at the same time, the news publication they were trying to cut off the salaries of the journalists and salary of the workers. Especially if you're not going out and if you're just working from home, they're offering you to just receive the half of the normal salary that you are having. Otherwise, you will be kicked out. You will be fired. From the job due to this COVID-19. So, and this is what happened to I would say the many of the journalists in Myanmar, and they have no choice. If they have only two options. One, if they want to stay, or if they want to leave. Of course, if they are leaving, they will get the compensation. But at the same time, it is not really easy for them to find another job, right? So if they are staying, they will only have half of their salary, so they have no choice. So I have some friends, who just left the industries, and they turned into the other businesses like food deliveries and the delivery services, and at the same time they are working as a freelancer. So so this is what happened to these the freelancers and the journalists in Myanmar. And of course, not only happening to this journalists and the media industry, but also to other industry like the garment industries. So I have been talking to many of the garment workers, from the industries. They were kicked out from their job, and also there's no promise made from their factories, regarding this COVID-19. They don't really have enough safeties, in their working environment, and also they have no like guarantees or promise, from their factories. What if some of them are tested positive? So they many of them are only they get very low minimum wage. In the like Myanmar, minimum wage is very low. In the region. So at the same time, as I said, these garment factory workers, they don't really have enough support from their factories, from their employees. Even they were only given one surgical mask, which is the disposal mask per week. So it means that they have to use the surgical mask, one surgical mask for 6 days, which is terrible. And then when they ask for the support or support from the factory, the factories, most of the factories decline, to give them support. So that's why they have to buy, the surgical masks from the pharmacies, in their neighborhood. Of course, during the COVID-19 lockdown period, in April, May, and also of course the early June, those surgical masks in Myanmar are very expensive, because of the price and stuff. So they were not even afford, to buy the surgical masks. So that's why they have to make the masks, at their home, and they have to use it. And also they were not provided the hand sanitizers at their working environment, and they were forced to work extra time, overtime. Of course they were paid for the overtime, but they don't really want to work in the working hour for longer because of the fear of this COVID-19. But they were forced to work. At the same time, there are some factories, garment factories, that fire like almost thousand of workers, from the factories, because they say, oh, we have less order, less how to say, like less assignment or less order from their buyers, because of due to the COVID-19. That's why they kicked out their workers. So this is happening to the workers in Myanmar. Like even in the cities like Yangon, which is the biggest cities in Myanmar, people, they have no futures when it comes to this COVID-19. Sometimes they were forced to resign from their job. At the same time, they have no future. They have no option to find another job. During in this COVID-19, and also as I mentioned earlier, even in their workspace, there's no support from their employees. So this is generally what's happening in Myanmar in terms of COVID-19.
So, and what about human rights? So human rights efforts are also affected similarly with other industry like garment or.
Yeah, of course. Myanmar, of course, we have so many, human rights issues in the country. Of course, the recent one, the day before yesterday, that was the 1 year anniversary of the internet shutdown in the northern states, in Myanmar, the Rakhine state and Chin state. So there was the internet shutdown, has been imposed by the government since last year June. So the people in that area, so they have been like they have to live under this internet shutdown. So you can imagine that we are now living in 2020. These people have to live without internet. So and also they are also facing they're also facing the civil war, the fighting between the country's army and the armed group. So they have to live in the fighting, and at the same time they have no internet and they have no updates. What's happening around in that area. So I have been traveling to that areas, and I myself experience what is the life without internet in this 21st century. So you have no update. What's happening. Especially when you're traveling to those conflict area, so you hear the weapon sounds and you don't know where exactly and what is happening. So these people, like over 1 billion people, have to live under this human right have to live under this internet shutdown, right? So this is very worrying. And of course, as as my friends from Thailand mentioned that of course nowadays for the education, people, especially the students, they cannot go to the schools, and they have to learn from the internet. They have to like use the internet to learn, right? But these people, they have no chance for it because they have no internet. So the kids, they are not able to go to their schools due to this pandemic. At the same time, they cannot learn from their home because they have no internet. So this is the biggest one, like one of the biggest human rights issues in Myanmar. Of course, at the same time, we have other human rights cases like the defamation law, that is being used against the journalists, the human rights activists, and other people. So yeah, I would like to say this COVID-19 pandemic affect to Myanmar so much.
Yes, so thank you very much for such an insightful talk and experience. So now we move on to the next question to Mr. Pavi. So during the first question, we talk about the current situation and the problem we are facing in terms of education, especially in Thailand, right? So in order to move forward to the next normal, what do you think what we should do to improve the current situation, the problem that you're talking about right now?
Okay, absolutely. So, education is a foundation that can be led to a prosperity of everything, especially environment and social. If we don't lay a solidified foundation of education, there will be a negative effect as like domino effect on these aspects. So, like as a suggestion for the solution to these problems, like the education should like teachers and academic institution should encourage students to provide subject in terms of critical thinking as to the developing thinking process in finding a contextual answer rather than finding an exact and correct answer. Because like if we keep learning on the latter, students will tend to be as a drone, not as a creator of the drone. That could be affecting the problem of in the future, especially the AI and robots. That also come to play as well. Since the new normal will come or has come now on the process of transition, like the subjects of in education must be like must have a creativity and innovation for development for the students. If we don't develop a subjects for critical thinking or creativity and innovation, like students won't be able to be competitive with others, and especially AI that could lead to losing job. But like also we should not like perceive negatively on AI. So like we should like think as like if we can integrate human and AI as a whole, that could be a great that could be very grateful for everyone as a win-win. Like the government should like provide a universal education for everyone that can be accessible, can be a subject that can be useful for daily life application. For example, from what I study in Australia, like I've learned how to cook and learn how to do some like graphic design, photography, or even like to do some metal and wood bits. These are like essential skills like for daily life if you gonna be adaptable and globalized and personalized
So
and as active.
yeah. So in terms of using the technology, do you think that in some country we will move forward to more online based education, or we should still based on like maybe like face to face education in the same way that we used to be? So.
In my opinion, like we should we should not go on like one side or the other. We should balance on both. Like for let's say like primary schools and nursery schools, like in person traditional teaching, like they should be it still be essential for them because like their brains are not like de- developing. They require like assistance from teachers to guide how to do this, how to do that. On the other hand, for online classes or subjects, like they should be suitable for high schools and university students, college students as well. Like for as like their brain are able to be able to process their thinking, their thoughts, and how um to to achieve the answer from step by step problem solution.
So during the first question, you talk about like many family that affected by COVID-19. There are the lower income households. So how can so what do you think? How can those type of family cope with the new change that they were forced to go online, but they cannot afford to do so? So what will you suggest? The government should do, or maybe we as a community can help to contribute them.
Um, if in terms of the government, like they should provide a subsidies like for these lower income housing, like for their accessibility to education, or they could give like a what should I say, like for a free electronic device and internet for that particular housing until they have uh, reached like let's say like grade 12 or the end of high school if possible. Like for the university, that's like an extra expense that the housing may be able to afford it in the future.
Okay, thank you very much for your insightful talk. And now we move forward to Mr. An about the environment. So what do you think we should do to move forward to the next normal? That because as you mentioned before that because of COVID-19, many people don't consider environment as the priority issue. So what should we move forward to like move to the next normal, to the better future?
Yes, so okay, so I have to say that due to COVID-19 right now, people, I think, especially in Vietnam, ask what I see every day in my daily life. I have to say people set the top priority. It should be and must be health. But if we have to find a solution for plastic. So I think it should not come from the citizen. It should come from the three factor. So right now I am we share the slides. I think it's easy for me to share with you guys about that.
Sure, please.
Yeah. So as we know about that, because plastic, Australian environment is really particular and specific. That's why, for example, I can share with you right now because what we heard from social media, we heard from other people that plastic is really bad. We should stop, using plastic, right? I think every country, try to spread that kind of information. But for me, I have to say that a plastic is a really big invention of human. But right now, due to we use plastic without control, and we don't have the solution for plastic, so it has become a really serious problem for everyone. Thus, I think most importantly, thus we can't find the solution for plastic. Yes, so I think that's why plastic is more than that. It's really more serious. It's more important. So it's more negative than what we think. But it's just not like that. It's not really bad like the way we think. So, three facts we have to do is the role of authority, stakeholders, and citizens as really important equally for solving problem in terms of plastic. For example, I will go from the lowest level. It should be citizen because citizen have the right to reduce plastic. So we have 6R. We reuse, recycle, refuse. Right? We have a lot of 6R or 3R. So the I'm sorry the it mean it's the highest level. It mean refuse. So we refuse using plastic as much we can in our life. But I bet that no one can not using plastic for the whole your life, but everyone must use it because it's very convenient and it's come in handy part of life. So we have to use, but we use with control. But citizens not really have we have powerful we have power to do that. But if a citizen use plastic, they release plastic into environment. So we have some stakeholder. It is some agency collect plastic. I think every like for example in Vietnam in the early morning we have some people collect plastic, right? So after collect plastic, they will go to some wet treatment. Yeah, so we have a lot of methods for that. For example, burning, dump in the landfill, or maybe dump in the ocean. Yeah. So the highest level is authority. So the authority has to enact some policies, some laws to restrict, banning not using plastic in some specific area. So I want to highlight that the solution for plastic, the negative thing caused by COVID-19 come from three factors. But plastic is not bad. But if we can use plastic, if we can build the system, the ecosystem of recycle that, yeah. Right now I think it's a chance in happening in everywhere. People using tooth bag, tooth bag, the bag, yeah. But we have to say that for making a tooth bag, it's got more water than a plastic. Yeah. So when we release tooth bag into environment, it's really makes some negative impact and influence on environment. Yeah, that's why right now before we have to think, we have to the right and the comprehensive knowledge about that. So we cannot ban plastic, but we can find the solution system for plastic, and we can solve that problem. And it's come from authorities, stakeholder, and citizens. So that's my idea about that.
Thank you very much. So now we will move on to CaF. What do you think about what should we do to move forward to the better future in terms in like for society to move forward, especially in the industry like journalism, garment, or even human rights effort? Because as you said, there are a lot of problems right now.
Yeah, of course. Now we are kind of used to it, working online and like having meetings online, which we never have like this before. Of course, uh, before, if we have a online meeting, we always prefer, in-person meetings, right? But right now, we are all kind of used to it, this online meetings, online learning, So I think, this is kind of good things, sometimes, if we don't really really need to meet in person, we can just do it online, so which we can save time, and we don't really need to travel, and stuff. But of course, in some particular cases, you really need to meet, in person for the particular cases, right? So of course, for the journalisms, and for the journalism, we of course sometimes we do interviews, over the internet, over the phone call, but sometimes, we really need to see, our sources, in person, and then we can have more insightful information, and also we can have a trust. Sometimes it is always good. I mean, it is always good to have the meetings in person. Then we know each other, and we can have a better, I would say, like better, friendship or the relationship, when we are walking in the field, right? But of course, in Myanmar, the human rights industries, and the journalism industries have never been easy, because Myanmar was under this, uh, the military's, rulings, the military junta for like over 40 years, 50 years, so we were born, this during the military's dictatorship, so since then, the journalisms, and the human rights, uh, activists, are having their life very hard. So, by this COVID-19 pandemic, they found a way, to move forward, like using the internet, having a lot of meetings, in terms of traveling to the other areas, But of course, as I mentioned before, we sometimes, need to have the meetings in person, and so this COVID-19 changed a lot, especially in Myanmar. So we change our work natures. We change our lifestyles. And at the same time, peoples are ready to float in the new normal, right? Even we had the very first the virtual protest the day before yesterday. That was on Sunday. I think the Thailand also had the virtual protest, a few weeks ago, right? So yeah, we had our first virtual protest, on Sunday. That was against this internet shutdown, 365 days. So normally, the activists and people go on the streets, and they hold the protest, the protest, and then they face the charges against them. They arrested by the police and by the security forces, and then they were charged. But in this case, it is good, right? They just protest on the internet, this virtual protest, and no one can really arrest them. But of course, at the same time, uh, I cannot tell for sure, they are not arrested, but of course, it is, the safer than going on the street. But I talked to some activists, they prefer to go on the street, and to have a strike or the protest. So, but of course, we now have, at least an extra option, like for our activities, which is internet. And at the same time, if the activist, or if someone is having a the movement or activities on the street, we have we have a law that can arrest them. So people, the normal people, I mean the civilians, they're worried about that. But now they have the extra option that they can do some things on the internet and the social media.
So that you mentioned previously about the problem about some people does not have access to internet, but we have to move forward with internet, and how can those people keep up with the internet?
That's a good question, right? Of course, that's why people are keep raising. I mean, people mean like us, who are consuming the internet every day, every second. That's why people like us and people like the activists, they are raising their voice, to lift this internet ban in that area. Of course, life without internet, in 21st century is really really hard. I mean, of course, they still can make a phone call, but it is not enough. I mean, at the same time, the internet, mobile data fees and the mobile phone call rates are still more expensive than other countries, in the region, like Myanmar is. So normal people, the general people, they are not, like afford to those load of, phone calls of, So that's why, people, they are raising their voice. Of course, I mean, for the people in the area who does not have access to the internet, I think, they are trying to move, forward their life in their way. But the thing is that it is very sad. Some people in that area, in that internet shutdown area, they don't even know what is going on with this COVID-19. It is very sad. Of course, the Songkran in the Thailand was cancelled, and the Tingjan, the water festivals in Myanmar in April was also cancelled. Like mainly in our the mainland. But when I talk to some people from those international down area, they did not even have the information about the cancellation of this festival. Then some of them, they were still celebrating the water festival in their neighborhood. So at the time, the people in the area like Yangon and the cities and other areas, they stay at home and like they enjoying their life with the internet, without going out. But in that area, people go out and even they're celebrating the water festival because they don't have the information of what's going on with this COVID-19. But the government said during the press conference, in May, the government said, the mobile operators are sending these SMS COVID-19 information via SMS, but which is not enough. So by using the internet, we can have more information than what we have receiving the limited information from this mobile operators. So this is worrying, for them.
Yes, so thank you very much for your insightful experience and opinion. So now we move on to some questions from our home audience. I would like to ask Kavi about what, in your opinion, what do you think is the better education curriculum combination that would be work better for students after COVID-19? What is like, what do you think about, like, what kind of combination should it be for the education curriculum?
Interesting question. If for my opinion, like the education must be able to provide like subjects in according to the demands of the labor market. Like if the education if academic institutions still like provide like subjects that aren't compatible to the labor market, like students like after graduation will be like unemployed after graduation, which are not acceptable for like labor standards like at national level and ILO standard. So the schools, like including university and college, they need to like to update with the labor market in order to provide subject compatible to what the employer and industry require such a manpower. Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much for your opinion. So because of we have a very limited time, so we will done with just this question. So so to you can after this session, the viewer can look at the summary of this session at our website. And from the point of view of Mr. Pavi in terms of education, people, because of COVID-19, we have a problem regarding the internet accessibility in lower incomes household, and a lot of things, and a lot of changes should be made to make the education system better to cope with the change after COVID-19, especially in the workforce that they need to change to cope with the newer technology and demands. And for Mr. An, you talk about that COVID-19 provide both positive and negative impact to people, and especially for the plastic issue that people should work to solve the problem that is going to be a bigger problem in the future, right? And Mr. Cape, you talk about a lot of problem in Myanmar, especially in garment industry, in journalism, and human rights that were affected by and still affected by COVID-19, and a lot of things has been made to make the change and move forward to the new normal by moving forward to apply more internet to get things done during our limitation and make things get going. Yeah. So thank you very much for our amazing speakers from the three countries, Mr. Pavi from Thailand, Mr. An from Vietnam, and Mr. Kev from Myanmar. Thank you very much for such an insightful talk. Yes. And for our next week, we will talk about the topic about the rapid shipping media consumption. But before you go, kindly please fill in our evaluation form by scanning the QR code at the below the screen, or if you cannot see it, you can look at our pin comment in our comment section by click the link and fill in your opinion about what we should do to improve our event and make it better, so our future events will be a lot better for you. So for our wonderful audience, thank you very much again for joining us today, and we hope to see you again on next Tuesday. Thank you very much ค่ะ สวัสดีค่ะ